To be or not to be? That was Hamlet's question, and today I'd like to answer it, but with a little bit different twist by saying that we definitely should be. And we should be a whole lot more and do a whole lot less in order to make our lives work much, much better. By being, I mean getting quiet, meditating, praying, getting in touch with the omniscience, omnipresence, and omnipotence of the universe, which we call God. And at the very least, we should be before doing, so that our doing will be less liable to cause us problems, and often having to backtrack and undo some of the things that we do. Now, last week, Katrina talked about Unity co-founder Myrtle Fillmore and how she and her husband Charles spent an hour a day sitting in the silence, that is, meditating and praying. Many people in our Western culture would consider that kind of being actually doing nothing, but as Katrina said, they were actually doing a whole lot. They were healing themselves. They were accessing the higher vibrations of life. They were recalibrating their consciousness. They were thus led in beneficial and positive directions forward that ordinary people might think of what they accomplished when they went forward as miracles. Charles and Myrtle Fillmore considered this sitting in the silence perfectly normal and something that we all should do. That not doing part of our Sunday service, the meditation and prayer part, is probably the most important time for us, because that's when we let all of the superficial material parts of our life go. It's when we give our egos a little time out. We allow ourselves during those precious moments to actually realize and be one with God, one with the divine in us. This is truly our natural state, but we often lose that because we're so busy doing in life. Now, the opposite of that natural state of being often feels like being on a treadmill. I know we all have felt that. Have you ever felt like you were just kind of busy, but not really going anywhere? Sort of like when you run on a treadmill, and when you finish, you're right there where you started? Have you ever felt like your life was kind of like being on a merry-go-round? You were going round and round and up and down, but you're really not going anywhere? And you just sometimes want to get off. Remember that old movie, Stop the World? I Want to Get Off? Around and around, up and down we often go. And ultimately, we just end up right where we started. Sometimes we end up further back than where we started by doing too much. I think most of us feel that way sometimes. I certainly do. Today, I'd like to share with you, though, some ideas about how you can get off that merry-go-round of life, that treadmill that we're often on, and get your feet on solid ground. The first idea that I'd like to share with you was, I think, most beautifully stated in the Gospel of Luke. It says, Jesus entered a village, and a woman named Martha received him into her house. She had a sister called Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet and listened to his teaching. But Martha was distracted with much serving, and she went to Jesus and said, Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve all alone? Tell her to help me. But the Lord answered her, Martha, Martha, you are anxious and troubled about many things. Only one thing is needful. Mary has chosen the portion which shall not be taken away from her. How many of us are like Martha sometimes? We're sometimes so busy with the important things of life that we don't take time to listen to the Lord within us. the Lord of our being. We may even be tempted to criticize this state of being or not doing and call it laziness or not being productive. In our culture especially, I think that's often true. We're so conditioned and preconditioned to equate busyness and activity with progress and accomplishment that sometimes we just don't stop and be. We tend to believe that if we're doing something all the time, we must be accomplishing something. But the truth is that sometimes, and I know you all know this by now, sometimes we can progress further and accomplish more by ceasing so much outer activity and turning our attention inward. We can sometimes accomplish more by not doing than by a whole lot of senseless doing that we sometimes have to undo. You notice that Jesus said, "Martha, Martha, you are anxious and troubled about many things. Only one thing is needful." He did not say to Mary, "Now you get up and help your sister." He said to Martha, "Take it easy, Martha. Don't get so uptight about all that you're doing to prepare the food and the dishes." He even made the suggestion that Mary made the wiser choice. He says, "Martha, Martha, you are anxious and troubled about many things. Only one thing is needful." That's a very interesting statement. Mary chose to become still and to sit at the feet of the Master and to listen to the truth. That is the portion that cannot be taken from her. Truth is what cannot be taken from us. Of course, that's what Mary wanted. Anytime we really learn truth in our soul, there is no power in the universe that can take that understanding away from us, ever. It's there forever, true understanding. You may not be consciously aware of it any more than you're consciously aware of how to tie a tennis shoe. You may not carry it around all the time in your intellect, but once you've got it in your soul, it's there. You can't lose that kind of wisdom, truth. On the other hand, outer things may rust and decay, as the Bible says, or get lost or expire, in my case. In reality, only one thing is really needful, as Jesus said. This statement kind of reminds me of what Jesus said in the Sermon on the Mount, too. "Be not anxious for tomorrow, but seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all else will be added to you." In the story of Mary and Martha, Jesus says, "Mary has chosen the portion which shall not be taken from her." Mary has chosen to become still and to listen and to discover truth at the feet of the Master. That is the portion that cannot be taken away from her. Of course, Mary made the right choice. The metaphysical meaning of this story is very practical. Only one thing is needful, and that is to learn from every experience the portion that cannot be taken away, the true wisdom. In that sense, life is a school. If we just have that little tool, that little key to open that, all life becomes interesting, no matter what's happening to you, because it's a learning situation. I like what Unity co-founder Charles Fillmore says about this passage in his Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, and I quote, "Martha represents the outer activity of the soul that is receiving the higher self. Mary represents the inner soul and receptivity. Martha desires to show her love by service. Mary shows hers by learning at Jesus' feet. Mary at Jesus' feet represents the soul as learning the lessons of life from the higher self. When the learning of these lessons is given first place in consciousness, the activity of service that follows then becomes simple and easy. But when Martha, the serving quality, is given precedence, anxiety and irritation result because there is a seeming separation from the source of love and poise, and a lack is sensed and consciousness. End of quote. And here's the sentence that sums up the whole thing by Fillmore. Understanding of truth must precede all real and effective service. Understanding of truth must precede all real and effective service. Now, understanding of truth must precede all real and effective service. When learning the lessons in life is given first place in consciousness, when we seek first the kingdom of heaven, when our soul's learning is our primary goal, and our outer doing the secondary goal, then that which proceeds then in the outer sense becomes simple and easy. It's when we lose sight of why we're really doing whatever it is we're doing, and we get caught up in the sometimes meaningless motions of it, that we become frustrated and distracted, like Martha did. We get that treadmill feeling, that sense of being on a merry-go-round. If we see no more than the physical, surface, material dimension of life, if that's all we see, it's very easy to feel like we're on an endless merry-go-round or treadmill and we can't get off. We're just doing and doing and doing. To live an effective life, there must be a balance then between this inner listening or this being and our outer doing. A balance. When doing precedes understanding why we're doing, we are often frustrated and anxious like Martha was and went in and complained to Jesus. Think about all the times when you have ever felt frustrated. Did your doing precede your understanding? Whenever I think about the times that I've experienced frustration, and there have been quite a few of them, that's exactly what has always happened. I've tried to do something without realizing exactly what I was doing or why. I forgot if I ever knew what I was trying to accomplish. I was not fully conscious of what I was doing when I was doing it. This is true even when doing has good intentions, like Martha's doing. She had good intentions. For example, many people are frustrated when they try to help others. We can't figure out why that person doesn't want to be helped. I'm sure many parents feel that way. It's probably because our doing is really an attempt to change the other person. We have no understanding of what and who that person really is and why they are the way they are. So seek first understanding. Seek first compassion. Compassion is the deepest form of understanding. When we feel true compassion for another person, I'm not talking about sympathy or pity, but true compassion and deep understanding, that's when we act. We act simply and easily and effectively. We aren't trying to push or change the other person or manipulate reality and change the outer in some way. Sometimes people say, and I've had quite a few people say to me, why is it that unity is not active in all kinds of social causes and charitable activities? And my response is that the teaching of unity is that first we seek understanding. Turn first to God to determine what we are to do from the point of understanding, and then do it from a point of being guided and directed by the Lord of our being, not from the point of view of trying to change other people or manipulate and change the outer world so that They will be the way we think they ought to be. There is a huge difference. You notice, too, that Jesus did not say, get busy and do something and you'll be free. He says, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. He told us what was important. He was not a social reformer, like many people wanted him to be. They wanted him to be king of the Jews and control everything socially. He didn't choose that path. You shall know the truth, and the truth is usually discovered in this state of silence, in the state of being, when we are quiet and receptive. That's why Jesus said that we should be as little children in order to access the kingdom of heaven. We need to be receptive like children. Most people have so many preconceived ideas about everything that they haven't been receptive in years. We all need periods, of course, of activity, and we need periods of rest. I think this is beautifully illustrated in the allegory of the creation story in Genesis. According to the story, God worked 6 days and rested on the seventh day. Now, why did he rest on the seventh day? Was God tired? It's a lot of work creating a lot of universes out there, I guess. God rested because that resting reflects a universal principle. That rest is a time of nurturing, quiet, and stillness that is necessary in the manifestation cycle. We're all manifesting our lives all the time, and also in our being and likeness. Whatever we are is what we're manifesting out there. So we need to rest. When we plant a seed in the ground, for example, there's a time of resting, germinating. The seed rests in the ground a good while before it germinates. The caterpillar rests in its cocoon for a good while before it's transformed into a butterfly. In every cycle of nature, there is a time of activity and a time of rest. And inactivity and rest don't mean that nothing is happening. In fact, more is happening during that quiet time than in the outer time of expression. In Taoism, there's a concept I'm sure you're all familiar with of yin and yang. Both the yin and the yang are essential parts of the order of the universe. Yang is the creative, active, masculine part of the universe, and the yin is the passive, receptive, nurturing, feminine part of the universe. The whole manifest world is made up of the interplay between the yin and the yang, the active and the passive, the masculine and the feminine. Just like in electricity, there's the positive and the negative. Neither is bad, neither is good. It's just the balance of nature. For our lives to be in order, we must cooperate with that universal balance, that universal law of activity and rest. This might be called doing and being. We must be and not do sometimes in order to go inside and really experience our oneness with the universe. Our oneness with God. Then when we do, we will have much better direction. And we won't just be spinning our wheels like a stimulus response machine. We won't make bad choices that have to be undone. The great transcendentalist Henry David Thoreau said, "It's not enough to be industrious. So are the ants. What are you industrious about?" Now, not doing or just being is more than just cessation of outer activity, too. This is a very, very important point. Not doing is much more than just ceasing to be busy. Not doing, but being is an attitude of stillness and peace and trust in the process. In the quietness and in the rest shall be your strength. In returning, you shall be saved. In the King James Version of this same quote, it says, in quietness and in confidence shall be your strength. You see, that's the non-doing cycle. The quietness, the rest, the confidence, this inner knowing. I'd like to share with you these words from Dr. Emily Cady from her book, How I Use Truth. She says, there is a perfect passivity that is not indolence. It is a living stillness, born of trust. What most people experience, though, is quiet tension, which is just compressed anxiety. We need to rise above this state of tension to one of living trust in the process, which enables us to do our highest work. End of quote. Now, trustful passivity, this idea of not doing, is not a condition of sleep or unawareness at all. It's not taking a nap. It's not spacing out. The Buddhists say that not doing is a time of becoming more conscious, more aware, and so do the Fillmores say that. The transcendentalist, again, Henry David Thoreau, entered into a 2-year period of not doing. He built a cabin in the woods at Walden Pond near Concord, Massachusetts, some 200 years ago. He lived in that cabin for 2 years. Did he want to escape reality? Did he do it because he was lazy? Because he wanted to fall asleep or space out? Quite the opposite. He writes in his work, Walden, the following: I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately, to confront only the essential facts of life, and to see if I could learn what life had to teach, and not, when I came to die, to discover that I had not lived. Not doing is a deepening of our awareness, a deepening of our consciousness. Not doing is a state of mind where we stop trying to learn and allow ourselves to be taught. There's a subtle but extremely important difference between trying to learn and allowing ourselves to be taught. When we're trying to learn, we're grasping all the time. We believe we know what it is that we need to learn, and we try to reach out and just get it. When we allow ourselves to be taught, we are open to what life has to teach us. We don't have preconditioned ideas about what we're supposed to learn or not learn. When we allow ourselves to be taught, we're not walking around thinking that this is the way it is, or this is the way it should be, or this is the way it shouldn't be in life. We're simply open to what life has to teach us. We stop trying to live our life, and we allow our life to be lived through us. We see ourselves as a channel, a vehicle through which the life force out there expresses itself without our trying to force or control it. Not doing and just being at regular intervals is not an unconscious drifting, this spacing out our idea. It's becoming still enough to recognize that our higher power is sustaining and guiding us. Before closing, I'd like to make the point that there is a time for doing. There is a time for everything, as it says in Ecclesiastes. I'm not trying to downplay any form of doing in an outer sense, but life is much, much easier and more effective when we let our work be done through us, when we seek first that portion that will never be taken away from us, and then let that work through us. Let God, your higher self, work through you. This concept is beautifully summarized in the Tao Te Ching. The word Tao could roughly be translated as the activity of God. The Tao means God, but not in a static anthropomorphic form, rather as a dynamic and fluid form. The way of the Tao is this: it strives not, but it conquers. It speaks not, but all is made clear. It summons not, but its house is always crowded. It contrives not, but its design is perfect. So whenever you find yourself getting caught up in the frenzied activity of life, just take a deep breath, and say to yourself, Martha, Martha, you are anxious and you are troubled about so many things, but only one thing is needful. And then take a few moments and become still and sit mentally at the feet of the Master, at the feet of the Lord of your being, of your higher self. Just be for a moment, and then choose the good portion, which will never be taken away from you. And then rest assured, trust that you will do what is best for you and the world. And so be it.